That lingerie was ruby red, bold enough to stop you in your tracks. It sat there in a fancy boutique bag on our kitchen counter in our cozy little house in Spokane's Browne's Edition, like some kind of high-priced warning sign. $65 for what looked like a couple of flimsy threads and a whole lot of optimism. "It's for my sister's birthday," Lila said, her eyes glued to her phone, fingers flying across the screen with those polished nails that cost more than my usual diner lunch. "A girl's trip to Seattle," she claimed. Now, I'm not the type to get all paranoid. I spend my days knee-deep in drywall and busted pipes, fixing up kitchens for folks who can afford better than me. But the way she said it, the way those hazel eyes of hers slid right past mine, set off a little alarm in my head, like a carbon monoxide detector with a low battery. "Since when does Marla want lingerie for her birthday?" I asked, propping myself against the kitchen doorway in what used to feel like our happy home on Cedar Avenue. Used to, anyway. Lately, it's been more like a scrapbook of better days, wedding pictures collecting cobwebs, trinkets from that trip to Italy when we still laughed together. Lila finally glanced up, and I caught that spark of irritation she's been tossing my way more often. "God, Jack, why do you have to question everything I do? It's not exactly charming." "Charming? Apparently wondering why your wife's dropping serious cash on skimpy underwear for her sister's birthday makes you the bad guy." I should have kept my mouth shut, but 20 years in Spokane's taught me one thing. When something feels off, it usually is. "I'm not questioning," I said, which was a total lie. I was questioning everything. The late nights at the ad agency, the sudden yoga classes she signed up for a few months back, the way she started curling her hair differently, even putting on lipstick just to grab milk at the corner store. "Just saying it's a bold gift choice." She snatched the bag and headed for the stairs, her pricey heels clicking on our oak floors like a ticking clock. "You know what, Jack? If you put even half the effort into our marriage as you do into playing detective, maybe we wouldn't be fighting like this." Classic Lila move. Flip the script. Make me the jerk for noticing she's been acting weirder than a deer in a hardware store for weeks. I watched her vanish upstairs, probably packing that red lingerie with whatever else she figured she needed for this so-called family trip that was starting to feel as fake as a clearance rack Rolex. I grabbed my phone and did what any guy in my shoes would do. I called my mother-in-law. "Hey, Mrs. Harper, it's Jack. Doing all right, thanks for asking. Quick question. What time should I swing by to grab the cake for Marla's birthday party this weekend?" The silence on the other end stretched longer than a bank loan approval. "Jack, sweetheart," she said finally, her voice dripping with confusion. "Marla's birthday isn't till January. Are you feeling okay?" My stomach did a somersault, like it was trying to climb out of my chest. "Oh, my bad," I said, playing it cool while my whole world started spinning. "Must have mixed up the dates. Sorry to bug you." I hung up and stared at my phone, listening to Lila rummaging upstairs, drawers slamming, the sharp zip of a suitcase. January. Marla's birthday was in January. It was August. That's when it hit me like a sledgehammer. I was in deep trouble. 3 hours later, Lila gave me a goodbye peck at the front door, about as warm as a grocery list checkmark. Her suitcase was sleek and teal, matching the glossy lipstick she'd just touched up. She smelled like that high-end perfume I'd gotten her for our anniversary, back when I thought we were still on the same side. "I'll text you later," she said, already halfway to her silver Audi, which we somehow afforded on my contractor gigs and her junior copywriter salary, probably thanks to her family's cash and what I was starting to suspect might be some shady accounting. "Drive careful," I called out, and I meant it. Even if she was feeding me a load of bull about where she was headed, I didn't want her hurt. Heartbroken? Maybe. Divorced? Possibly. But it didn't hurt. I watched her back out of the driveway, waving like everything was fine, like she wasn't shredding my life into confetti. Then I went inside, cracked open a beer at 2 in the afternoon, because sometimes life demands a cold one, and this was one of those moments. 20 minutes later, my phone pinged. A text. "This isn't working anymore, Jack. I need some space. Don't reach out." I read it 4 times before it sank in. 22 words that spelled the end of my marriage, delivered via text while I was still tasting that half-hearted goodbye kiss. I called her anyway because apparently I'm a sucker for pain. "Hi, you've reached Lila Harper. I'm unavailable right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you soon." Beep. "Lila, what's going on? You can't just call me back, please." She didn't. Not after my next 3 texts, or the voicemail I left an hour later, asking if she was okay, if someone stole her phone, if she'd been kidnapped by robots who only sent icy text messages. By nightfall, I was Googling how to track your spouse's phone, feeling like the sad sack husband in some low-budget drama, the one nobody cheers for. But here's the thing about being that guy. When your wife takes off with fancy lingerie and lies about birthday parties, you stop worrying about looking pathetic and start hunting for the truth. Her Instagram story was what finally crushed me. There was my wife of 5 years, lounging in what was definitely not a family-friendly hotel. The backdrop was some tacky wood-paneled wall, like you'd find in a budget motel off the interstate. But her caption read, "Girls' weekend vibes, Shirim blessed Meshonak's sister time," with enough heart emojis to crash a wedding card. I screenshotted it faster than you can say proof, and sat there staring until my eyes stung. The timestamp on her Instagram story said it had been up for half an hour, meaning Lila had driven to some sketchy roadside joint, checked in, slipped into that ruby red lingerie I'd shelled out for, and then had the nerve to post about her fake girls trip like I wouldn't notice. That's when I stopped being the clueless guy in the dark and turned into someone with a plan. I popped open another beer and started plotting. Morning came with a drizzle and a headache that felt like my brain was trying to claw its way out of my skull. I'd crashed on the couch, my neck stiff as a board, nursing the kind of hangover that makes you question your life choices. Lila hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't given me a single hint about why our marriage went from okay to over in the span of a breakfast burrito. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my buddy Nate, who ran a dive bar called Rusty's in downtown Spokane. Nate had this knack for sniffing out trouble, probably from years of watching folks drown their bad decisions in cheap bourbon. "Jack, you sound like you got hit by a truck," he said when I rang him back. "Feel like it too," I admitted. "Lila ditched me yesterday with a text." "Damn, man, want to hash it out?" "Not yet, but Nate, keep your eyes peeled, all right? Something tells me this is just the start." Nate grew up in Spokane, so he knew everybody's dirt better than they knew their own. If Lila was sneaking around, he'd catch wind of it sooner or later. Small cities like ours don't hold on to secrets. They pass them around like potluck dishes at a community barbecue. I tried to work on Mrs. Callahan's kitchen remodel that morning, but my head wasn't in it. Tough to care about countertop finishes when your life's crumbling faster than bad grout. By noon, I gave up on playing productively and drove to the heart of town, parking across from Peak Pulse Gym, where Lila got that sudden fitness obsession 3 months back. It didn't take long to spot her. There she was, strutting out in skin-tight workout gear that screamed, "Look at me," more than "I'm here to sweat." And someone was definitely looking. A jacked dude with muscles that said he spent more time flexing in mirrors than I spent fixing sinks was holding the door for her, his hand lingering a bit too long on her lower back. They chatted in the parking lot, and even from a distance I could read the vibe. The way she brushed his arm when she laughed, the way he leaned in close like they were sharing the world's juiciest secret. I snapped photos, a whole bunch of them. The guy was Trent something or other. I'd seen him around, knew he was a personal trainer with a reputation that'd make sensible folks steer clear. Apparently, Lila wasn't as sensible as I'd hoped. They parted with what looked like a peck on the cheek, but the kind that hints at more private moments. Lila slid into her Audi and headed toward her mom's place. Trent climbed into a flashy red pickup, decked out with enough chrome to blind you, and peeled off toward the ritzy side of town where folks have gated driveways and strong opinions about hedge trimmers. I sat in my truck, chewing on the image of that red lingerie, her fake girls trip, and the way my wife looked at this guy like he'd invented starlight just for her. That night, Lila's sister Marla called. "Jack, I'm worried about Lila. She's not picking up, and Mom said you asked about my birthday." Marla was the solid one, married to her college boyfriend, raising 2 kids, teaching at the local elementary school, still believing in fairy tale endings. She didn't deserve to get tangled in whatever mess Lila was spinning. "She told me she was heading to Seattle for your birthday," I said. "A sister's weekend." The silence on the line was thick enough to choke on. "Jack, we've got nothing planned, and my birthday's in January. You know that, right?" "Yeah, I'm starting to piece it together. Listen, Marla, if Lila reaches out, can you give me a heads up? I'm worried too." "Of course, Jack, is everything all right?" "Not really, but I'll figure it out." After we hung up, I poured myself a double shot of whiskey and started digging into Trent, whatever his name was. Social media is like a cheat code for stalking these days. His name was Trent Voss, 35, divorced, ran a small fitness coaching gig that seemed to target bored housewives looking to transform. His Instagram was a shrine to shirtless selfies and cheesy quotes about seizing the day and claiming what's yours. He had a girlfriend too, Kendra, all glossy and filtered like an influencer ad. Tons of photos of them at upscale bistros I'd never stepped foot in, on trips to places like Colombia I'd never seen, doing the kind of couple stuff Lila and I used to do back when we were still a team. I wondered if Kendra knew her boyfriend was teaching married women more than just deadlift form. By day 3, my anger had cooled into something sharper, more focused. Lila called once while I was washing dishes, leaving a voicemail that somehow managed to sound sorry and snippy all at once. "Jack, I know you're mad, and I'm sorry about the text, but I need time to sort myself out. We haven't been happy for a while, and you know it. I'm at Mom's for now. Don't make this messier than it needs to be." At Mom's, huh? Because nothing says finding yourself like crashing with your mother while your husband plays private eye with a smartphone. I was at Rusty's that night, sipping my second beer, trying to map out my next move, when Nate plopped down on the stool beside me. Nate didn't waste time with chit-chat. "Word is you've been poking around about Trent Voss," he said, sliding onto the bar stool at Rusty's. My grip on my beer tightened till my knuckles went white. "Maybe I have. Well, here's something you might want to hear. He's been running his mouth about a new client. Married ad exec, drives a slick car, husband doesn't know what he's got." My jaw clenched. "He's talking about Lila." "Didn't drop names, Jack, but come on. How many married women in Spokane drive Audis and work in advertising?" "What else?" Nate shifted, looking uneasy. "Jack, maybe you don't need to hear this." "Spill it, Nate." He sighed. "Says she's got a taste for the finer things. Fancy underwear, boutique hotels, upscale bistros. Says some guys don't know how to keep their wives happy, so others got to step in and handle it." The beer bottle creaked in my hand, and I set it down before it shattered. "He said that word for word?" "Look, Jack, we go way back to high school. You're solid, and you got a raw deal. But whatever you're thinking, don't do anything reckless." "I'm not out to hurt anyone," I said, though my voice sounded tighter than I meant. "That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried you'll do something dumb and make this mess uglier." I downed the rest of my beer, tossed some cash on the bar, and stood. "Nate, I hear you, but sometimes dumb's exactly what the situation calls for." The next morning, I found an envelope tucked under my truck's windshield wiper, parked outside our place in Spokane's Browne's addition. My name was scrawled in sharp block letters, no sender listed. Inside, a single sheet of paper held 5 words. "She's playing you. Get out." I scanned the lot, but it was just me, Mrs. Delaney walking her creaky old spaniel, and the mail truck rumbling by. Whoever left it was long gone. I read it 3 more times, then slipped it into my wallet next to my ID, and that receipt for the ruby red lingerie I'd never lay eyes on again. That afternoon, I decided it was time to rearrange some things at home, starting with Lila's office. The one room I was supposed to steer clear of because of client confidentiality and other fancy ad world jargon that boiled down to keep out. Well, she wasn't here to say no, and I figured a husband's right to know trumped her excuses when she was stepping out with a gym rat named Trent. Her laptop was locked, but Lila's never been a tech wizard. Her password? Our wedding date? Guess she still had a sliver of nostalgia to use the day we tied the knot to guard the secrets tearing it apart. What I found in her emails made me wish I'd listened to that note and bolted. Dozens of messages between Lila, her sister Marla, her mom, even her old college friend Kendra, all hashing out something called Operation New Horizon. The emails started 3 months back, right when Lila began acting distant, hitting the gym, treating me like a chore she couldn't wait to ditch. The plan was cold-blooded and brutal. Lila would build a case that I was controlling. Apparently, asking where she was headed counted as controlling. She'd create a paper trail of emotional neglect. Turns out, wanting to hang out with my wife was neglectful. She'd siphon cash from our joint accounts into ones I didn't know existed, calling it securing her future. The final step? Slap a restraining order on me with fabricated evidence, keep the house, and walk away with half my savings plus alimony that'd keep me scraping by for years. And Trent? He wasn't just her side piece. He was her partner in crime. The emails showed he'd pulled this scam before, helping unhappy wives torch their marriages for profit. I printed it all, every email, every document, every shred of proof that this wasn't just a fling, but a calculated takedown. Then I called my lawyer, a guy named Greg Harlan, who'd helped me set up my contracting business and knew his way around messy divorces. "Jack," he said after I laid it all out, I've seen some ugly breakups, but this is next level. She's been scheming for months. What's my move? First, lock down your money, move funds, change passwords, document everything. Second, brace for a fight, because when she realizes you're onto her, she'll come at you hard. Third, Greg gave a grim chuckle, thank whoever dropped you that note, because without it, you'd be couch surfing in a one-room rental, paying half your income to a woman who played you like a cheap fiddle. That night, I shifted $12,000 from our joint savings to a new account at a different bank. I changed every password, email, social media, even our shared streaming apps. Hell, I swapped the Wi-Fi code just for kicks. Then I sat at the kitchen table with a beer and that lingerie receipt, sketching out my own game plan. If Lila wanted to play dirty, I'd show her what happens when the other side knows the playbook. Spokane's Riverfront Festival was set for Saturday, meaning the whole town would be packed into one spot all day. Lila wouldn't miss it. She loved any chance to show off, schmooze, and remind everyone she was a hotshot ad exec married to a regular contractor who probably wasn't good enough for her. This year, she'd be right about that last part, but not how she thought. Friday night, I hit up the hardware store, picking up supplies for what I told the clerk was a special project. Heavy-duty cable ties, a sack of concrete mix, a sturdy tarp, stuff that could fix a patio or, depending on your mindset, look like you're planning something darker. I wasn't out to hurt anyone, but if Trent thought I might be, that wouldn't hurt my cause. Saturday morning broke clear and crisp, the kind of Washington day that makes you think fresh starts are possible. I dressed sharp, clean denim, a flannel shirt Lila got me for my birthday, work boots with enough heft to make an impression if needed. The festival was buzzing by the time I rolled into Riverfront Park. Kids darted around with snow cones, a local band strummed on a makeshift stage, and vendors hawked everything from hand-carved coasters to campaign stickers. Classic small city life, the sort of spot where everyone's on a first-name basis and secrets don't last longer than a coffee break. I spotted Lila by the craft beer stand, looking polished in a light summer dress that likely set her back more than my monthly truck note. She was chatting with a cluster of gals from her ad agency, all clutching disposable cups of rosé and chuckling at whatever half-baked joke was floating around. She caught sight of me approaching, and her expression cycled through a half-dozen looks before landing on guarded poise. "Jack, didn't figure you'd show up here," she said. "I wouldn't dream of skipping it. You know I'm a sucker for the Riverfront Festival." The ladies she'd been yapping with scattered as quickly as rabbits, like marital drama was contagious and nobody wanted to catch the fallout. "How are you holding up?" Lila asked, and for a split second, she almost sounded genuine, like she gave a damn about my answer. You know, sorting through some major shifts, picking up intel on folks I thought I had figured out." Real eye-opener. A shadow crossed her face, maybe nerves or a twinge of conscience. Tough to pin down with Lila. She'd always been a pro at masking her true colors. "Jack, let's chat sometime." "We should, yeah, but not with the whole crowd watching. You know how Spokane thrives on the rumor mill." That's when Trent sauntered over, easing in beside Lila with the easy swagger of someone who'd been eavesdropping from across the park. Up close, he was even more of a tool than he'd seemed from afar. All gleaming smile, ripped physique, and aftershave that reeked like it poured from a luxury sedan bottle. "All good here?" he asked, draping a claiming arm over Lila's shoulder. "Everything's cool," Lila cut in fast. "Trent, meet my husband, Jack. Jack, Trent. He's my fitness coach." "Coach, huh?" I echoed. "Yeah. Word is you've been hitting the workouts hard, toning up, experimenting with fresh routines." Trent's grin twitched for a beat. "Lila's made solid gains. She's committed, no doubt." "I'll bet." Lila's always thrown herself into pursuits that catch her interest. The air got so heavy you could slice it, and nearby festival folks were starting to rubberneck. In a place like Spokane, nothing packs a crowd quicker than the scent of a blow-up. "Jack," Lila warned, her tone sharp as a tack. "We should probably—" "Hold up, Trent," I jumped in. "I've got a question I've been dying to toss your way. You handle a bunch of married clients in your gig, don't you?" He puffed his chest a tad. "I guide folks toward their goals, no matter their setup. And I'm guessing some need that extra push. Custom sessions, close guidance, secluded spots to really dig in." "Jack, enough," Lila snapped, but I was warming up. "Here's the deal, Trent. I've looked into how you run things, and it's slick, super detailed, all-inclusive." Trent edged nearer, leaning on his size to loom a bit. "No clue what you're getting at." I'm not hinting, man. I'm laying it out. You target wives whose guys take them for granted. You get them fit, boost their self-esteem, remind them what they're overlooking. Heck, you even pitch in on side gigs like money moves, strategy sessions, major life pivots. His spray tan glow faded to ashen. You're way off base. Am I? I whipped out my phone and flashed a screenshot from one of Lila's emails. 'Cause this says you've been a real team player in my wife's New Horizon setup. Super involved from start to finish. Lila lunged for the screen, but I'd pocketed it already. Jack, you had no business snooping through my stuff. My own wife's emails on our family laptop in our home? Honey, I had every business. What I lacked was a heads up. But that's fixed now. A real audience was forming by then. Nate from the bar, Mrs. Callahan from the kitchen job, and a good 10 or 12 locals I knew from around Browne's addition. The type who'd buzz this tale across every backyard barbecue by dusk. Trent inched closer still. Near enough I caught a whiff of his shake breath. Back off, you sneaky rat. Sneaky rat? That's your big line? I chuckled. With all that bulk and pomade, your comebacks could use some reps. Jack, Lila whispered fiercely, you're making a fool of yourself. Me? From my view, the fool's not the one airing out the truth. I didn't fake sisters' weekends or birthday bashes. I didn't plan to gut someone's world for a payday. That's not... It's exactly what you think? I scanned the group, locking eyes with whoever I could. Listen up, everyone. We've got a straight-up hometown soap opera here. Guy meets gal. They tie the knot. Gal gets restless, figures it's time to wreck the guy for her bank account. Recruits a beefy sidekick to pull off the demolition. A story as old as the hills. Trent's cheeks flushed beet red, knuckles whitening. Keep flapping your gums or want to take this outside and hash it man to man? Nah, we're hashing it right here, in front of all the folks who count. That's when he charged. I saw it coming. Dudes like Trent are as foreseeable as clockwork when their pride takes a hit. I sidestepped, letting his rush slam him into a main tent pole. The frame wobbled hard, cups of brew splashed everywhere, and Trent dropped to one knee with a thud. The onlookers sucked in air and shoved in tighter. Easy there, big guy, I said, hauling him up with mock worry. That frame's got to be tough to lug around. Got to mind your step with all that extra weight. He threw a wild swing next, a roundhouse that'd have clocked me cold if it landed. But decades hauling tools and dodging hazards had sharpened my moves. I bobbed low, snagged his arm, twisted with his own drive, and steered him right toward the park's big fountain. Take a dip, I suggested, adding a nudge for good measure. Trent Voss, go-to coach for Spokane's restless suburban set, plunged in with a geyser that drenched the front row of watchers. Trent came up from the fountain gasping, his slicked-back hair glued to his scalp, his tight tank top plastered to his chiseled pecs like shrink wrap. The crowd at Riverfront Park roared with laughter in a smattering of claps. All right, folks, show's done, I called out. Thanks for supporting Spokane's finest drama. As people wandered off, still chuckling and buzzing about the spectacle, I turned to Lila. She stood there, jaw dropped, her pristine festival dress now speckled with fountain mist, her face flipping between fury, shame, and maybe a flicker of panic. You idiot, she hissed. You absolute moron. Whoa, that's not very ad exec of you. What would your mom think? My mom, Jack. You just assaulted someone in front of half the city. Did I know? Far as I saw, a guy swung at me, missed, and took a dive into the fountain courtesy of his own 2 left feet. Gravity's a tough critic, Lila. Physics doesn't play favorites, even when folks lie. She glanced at the thinning crowd, probably tallying how fast this would spread and how bad it'd dent her polished persona. This isn't finished, she said, voice low. Nope, I agreed. It sure ain't. But Lila, next time you plan to ruin someone's life, maybe make sure they don't get a heads up. I'm not that guy who shelled out for ruby red lingerie for your fake girls trips anymore. That guy trusted you. That guy was blind. That guy's history. She opened her mouth to fire back, but I was already walking away. I had calls to make, moves to plan, and a few more surprises up my sleeve. Behind me, I heard Trent clambering out of the water, griping and whining to anyone nearby about how he'd been jumped for no reason. But folks weren't buying it. In Spokane, you earn respect by keeping your cool, not by throwing punches and landing in a public bath. By Monday, the fountain fiasco was a local legend. Nate called to say Rusty's was slammed all weekend, with folks reenacting the scene, complete with sound effects and debates over Trent's faceplant expression. You're a celebrity, he said. Also, heads up, Trent's been mouthing off about getting payback. What kind of payback? The kind involving late-night visits and busted windows. Might want to keep an eye out. Appreciate the tip. Anything else? Lila's been ringing up every lawyer in town trying to find someone to take her case. But those emails you dug up, they've made her a bit toxic in legal circles. Funny how fast news travels when money's on the line. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in ages. Lila's grand scheme was unraveling, and she was finally tasting some fallout. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. That afternoon, I parked outside Peak Pulse Gym and waited. Sure enough, around 6, Trent's shiny red pickup rolled in. He stepped out, glancing around like he expected trouble, then headed inside. I gave him 10 minutes to settle, then followed. The gym was quiet. A couple of hardcore lifters grunting, one older lady on a treadmill with earbuds, lost in her zone. Trent was at the squat rack, slamming plates onto the bar with more aggression than the lift probably needed. "Yo, Trent," I called, all cheery. "Good to see you dried out from the other day." He spun around, face darkening when he spotted me. "What do you want, man?" "Just figured we should clear things up, you know? Guy to guy." "We got nothing to discuss." "Oh, I think we do. Word is you've been telling folks I blindsided you at the festival. That's not quite how it went down." The lady on the treadmill slowed her pace, pretending not to eavesdrop while soaking in every word. "You cheap-shotted me," Trent barked, loud enough for the whole gym to hear. "Did I? Way I recall, you threw a punch, whiffed, tripped over your own ego, and took a swim. Rough day, sure, but not an attack. That's not how it happened." "No?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a clip Nate had recorded from across the park. "This is different. Check it. There's you swinging, there's me dodging, there's you stumbling, and there's you splashing. Technology's a funny thing, always catching the real story." Trent's face drained of color as he watched himself on the screen, clearly throwing the first punch, clearly missing, clearly eating it in the fountain without a nudge from me. "And if you want to push this," I went on, "we could let the cops sort it out. They'd probably love this video. Might also be curious about your side hustle with my wife. You know, the fraud scheme, the fake accusations, that whole New Horizon deal you two cooked up." The treadmill lady wasn't even pretending to jog now, just standing there, hanging on my every word. "I don't know what you're on about," Trent muttered, but his swagger was gone. "Don't you? I've got emails, Trent. Piles of them. Between you and Lila and her family, all of you are scheming to take me down. The kind of stuff prosecutors eat up in court." I leaned in close, dropping my voice so only he could hear. "Here's the deal, Trent. You picked the wrong guy this time, Trent. Lila might have thought she married some clueless contractor who'd roll over, but she misjudged me. Badly. And you? You're not half as clever as you think." His eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat?" "Nah, I'm just schooling you. I know all about your side hustle. Targeting married women, cooking up divorce schemes, skimming their cash. I know about Kendra, your girlfriend who thinks you're loyal. I know about the other women you've conned. I know it all, Trent. So what's your next move?" He set down the barbell he'd been gripping and faced me square. "What do you want, man?" "Stay away from my wife. Keep your trap shut about the festival. And think real hard about what happens to guys who wreck marriages when those husbands push back. And if I don't," I grinned, "then you'll see how inventive a contractor can get. You play with gym equipment, Trent. I build structures. I tear them down. I know how to make problems vanish for good." The lady on the treadmill picked that moment to bolt, grabbing her towel and water bottle, dodging eye contact as she hustled out. "You can't scare me," Trent said, but his voice wavered, not as cocky as before. "I'm not scaring you. I'm promising you. Cross me again, and you'll feel what it's like to be the target of a real plan." I turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Oh, and Trent, check your truck when you head out. Parking lots can be rough. Nails, screws, sharp stuff that can mess up those fancy tires. Be a shame if something happened to that shiny ride." I left him standing there, probably wondering if I was bluffing about his truck, maybe questioning if I was unhinged enough to follow through. Truth is, I hadn't touched his pickup yet. Sometimes the threat of trouble hits harder than the trouble itself. By the time I got back to our place in Spokane's Browne's Edition, Lila had blown up my phone with 7 voicemails and a dozen texts. They started pissed, swung through righteous indignation, and landed somewhere between frantic and livid. The last voicemail caught my ear. "Jack, I don't know what you're trying to pull, but you need to stop. That stunt at the festival humiliated everyone. Trent could have been hurt, and now the whole town's talking about your antics. This isn't you. Call me back. We gotta talk." Not me, huh? She wasn't wrong. The old Jack would have dialed her back, groveled for embarrassing her, tried to patch things up like a sensible guy. But Jack didn't know about Operation New Horizon, that Jack hadn't seen emails plotting his downfall, that Jack was long gone, and what was left wasn't big on forgiveness. I didn't call her. Instead, I spent the evening digging deeper into her files, printing more proof, building a case that'd make any divorce lawyer's head spin. What I found made those first emails look like love notes. Lila wasn't just planning to ditch me. She'd been crafting a fake story to bury me in court. Photos of bruises that screamed stage makeup. Diary entries about threats I never made, fights that never happened. Even audio clips of conversations we'd never had, pieced together with some slick voice editing app and scripted lines. It was a masterpiece, honestly. If I hadn't stumbled onto her scheme by chance, she'd have pulled it off. I'd be labeled a monster, lose the house, my business, my name, everything I'd busted my ass for. I'd be stuck paying her alimony while she and Trent kicked back in my home, blowing my money. The thought made my hands tremble with fury. Around midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. Jack, it's Kendra, Trent's girlfriend. We need to talk. I sat up, pulse kicking. About what? About what Trent and your wife are up to and how we're going to stop them. We met at a 24-hour diner off Division Street at 1 a.m. because apparently plotting revenge calls for stale coffee and harsh lighting. Kendra was prettier in person than her Instagram shots, but her eyes had a sharpness, like someone who'd just had their world flipped upside down. How long have you known? She asked after we ordered coffee we didn't touch. About a week. You? 3 days. Found her lingerie in his truck. Red lace. Pricey stuff. My jaw tightened. That was my $65 purchase. Sorry, I said, meaning it. This whole mess is twisted. You don't know half of it. She slid her phone over, showing screenshots of texts. He's done this before, at least 3 times I can prove. Always married women, same playbook. Get 'em fit, get 'em close, help 'em tank their marriages, take a slice of the settlement. Jesus, how'd you figure it out? Dropped $2,000 on a private investigator. Worth every penny. Your wife's not his first mark, Jack. Just the latest. She scrolled to text between Trent and some guy named R about the Harper job running on schedule. Harper's her maiden name, I said. She never took mine. R is Roger Harlan, Trent's partner in this racket. They've been running it for 2 years, targeting wives with cash and helping them cash out their marriages. Roger Harlan? Related to Greg Harlan, my lawyer? His cousin. Explains how they spot the shaky marriages and the women with assets worth grabbing. The coffee arrived, but we ignored it. This wasn't just cheating or even fraud. It was a full-blown hustle, and Lila was both victim and player. What's your plan? I asked. Kendra's smile could have cut steel. I want to burn them all down. They've been tearing people's lives apart, Kendra said, leaning in, her voice barely above a whisper, even though the diner was empty except for us and a weary waitress wiping down counters. Trent keeps records, photos, videos, bank docs, everything. He thinks it's his safety net against his targets, but it's really proof of a whole criminal racket. And you want to grab it? I want to snatch it and hand it over to the cops, along with all the dirt we can dig up, but I can't do it solo. I mulled it over for about half a minute. What do you need from me? Trent's heading out of town this weekend, some fitness expo in Miami. His place will be empty from Friday night to Sunday afternoon. You want me to break into his house? I want us to get justice. Call it what you want. I looked across the table at this woman whose world had been flipped by the same people who tried to wreck mine, and I made a choice the old Jack never would have touched. Friday night, I said. But we do it clean. No burglary charges, no rap sheets. We get in, grab the evidence, and get out smoothly. Deal. We shook hands over the sticky table, like partners in a gritty startup, specialists in settling scores with people who thought they were untouchable. Thursday brought a drizzle and a knock from the cops. Officer Maria Vance, who'd been a couple years ahead of me in school and married to a guy who sourced lumber from my supplier, showed up at my door in Browne's addition at 8 sharp. She was all business, but not cold. Jack, we got to talk about the festival. Want to come in? That'd be good. We sat at my kitchen table, her jotting notes as she asked about the dust-up with Trent. Her questions were straight up and thorough, but I could tell she was just checking boxes, not building a case. Trent Voss filed a complaint, she said finally. Claims you assaulted him, threatened him, and you're tailing him. What does the video show? She cracked a small grin. Video shows Trent swinging at you, missing, and taking a dive into the fountain all on his own. As for threats and stalking, he's got no proof beyond his word against yours. And my take? You went to his gym once to set things straight after he came at you in public. Maybe told him to steer clear of your wife, which is your right as her husband. Any tire trouble his truck had in the gym lot? Probably just construction debris. Happens all the time around here. I hadn't messed with his tires, but I liked that she was giving me an out if I had. So, what's next? I tell Trent there's not enough evidence to press charges and suggest you both avoid each other. If he's got more issues, he should call us, not play the tough guy. After she left, I realized Lila's scheme was crumbling faster than she could patch it. The criminal complaint flopped, so she couldn't use it to paint me as violent in court. Her affair was the talk of Spokane, torching her image as the wrong party. And her partner in crime was about to be outed as a serial marriage wrecker with a shady operation. All she had left was her fake evidence, and even that was looking shaky now that everyone knew she was spinning lies. Friday night rolled in with fog creeping up from the river, the kind of damp that seeps into your bones. Kendra picked me up at midnight in a beat-up Toyota that looked like it was held together by hope and duct tape. "Are you sure about this?" I asked as we cruised through Spokane's quiet streets toward Trent's place. Never be sure of anything. He lived in a rental on the edge of town, in a spot that looked decent from the curb, but probably had more code violations than a condemned warehouse. Kendra had a key, which made things a lot smoother. "He gave it to me 6 months back," she said as we pulled into the driveway, "back when he was pretending we had a future." The house was dark and silent, just as expected. We used flashlights instead of flipping switches, moving fast through rooms that reeked of protein shakes and bad decisions. Trent's computer sat in a spare bedroom he'd turned into an office, walls plastered with flexing selfies and cheesy posters about grit and glory. The irony was thicker than the dust. "It's locked," Kendra said, staring at the login screen. "What's he using?" "Something about himself. He's not big on creativity." We tried his birthday, his gym's name, his dog's name. Zilch. Then Kendra had a light bulb moment. "Try Prime Stud 2020. The screen flicked open. "Seriously?" I asked. "Told you he's predictable." What we found was worse than I'd braced for. Hundreds of files detailing Trent's business with married women, photos, videos, bank records, a full database of targets, marks, and closed deals. Lila's file, tagged Harper Phase 3, had everything from her gym sign-up form to candid shots of us together I never knew were taken. There were notes on my work hours, my finances, even a half-baked psychological profile Trent cooked up. "This is twisted," Kendra muttered, scrolling through folders named for other women. "He's been shredding families for kicks and cash." "Copy it all," I said. "We'll sort it out later." While Kendra transferred files to a thumb drive, I stumbled on a folder labeled Backup Plan. It held proof of Trent's other shady dealings. Trent's computer was a goldmine of sleaze. Drug deals, tax dodging, fake IDs, even a credit card hustle. The guy wasn't just wrecking homes, he was a walking crime spree. "Got it all," Kendra said, yanking the thumb drive from the port. We were back in her clunker Toyota, cruising halfway across Spokane, before either of us spoke again. "What's our move with this?" she asked. "We hand it all to the cops, every file, every dirty detail. Let them pick which felony to nail him on first. And after that, we sit back and watch Trent's world crash and burn. Lila's right along with it." Saturday morning, I called Greg Harlan for an urgent sit-down. When I showed him the haul from Trent's computer, his face went ghost white. "Jack, this isn't just an affair. This is a full-blown fraud ring. Your wife's not just cheating, she's neck-deep in organized crime." "What's that mean for the divorce?" "Means she's not getting a dime. Means she's likely headed for a cell. And means you'll walk away with everything you had, probably plus some damages for the trouble." That afternoon, Greg and I marched into the Spokane police station with a stack of evidence thick enough to lock up Trent, Lila, and Roger Harlan for years. Officer Maria Vance took one glance at the files and called in state investigators. By evening, 3 different agencies were combing through our haul, piecing together the mess. Sunday morning, news hit Spokane faster than gossip at a block party. Trent got nabbed at the Miami airport, trying to jet off to Colombia with a duffel stuffed with cash and forged IDs. Roger Harlan was in cuffs, and Lila had been picked up at her mom's place. The charges? Fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, identity theft, and a laundry list of felonies I'd never even heard of. Nate called me around noon, laughing so hard he could barely get words out. Jack, you glorious lunatic. You know what you pulled off? Got even, I guess. Even? You got justice and revenge in one swing. The whole city's buzzing. Lila Harper, the big shot ad exec, hauled off in handcuffs while her mom yelled about police harassment and fake charges. What about Marla? She didn't deserve to get dragged into this. Marla's good. She actually called me, asked me to tell you she's sorry about Lila, and proud you fought back. That evening, I kicked back on my front porch in Browne's addition with a beer, watching the sun dip over the city I'd called home my whole adult life. The house didn't feel like a shrine to old memories anymore. It felt like a place where I could start fresh. My phone buzzed. Lila's number. I let it go to voicemail. Jack, this is a huge mix-up. I never meant for things to spiral like this. Trent twisted my head, fed me lies about you. I love you. I've always loved you. Please, you're my husband. You can't just leave me hanging. I deleted it without a second listen. Monday brought a parade of folks to my door, reporters sniffing for details on Spokane's marriage fraud bust, neighbors dropping off casseroles in support, old buddies swinging by to slap my back and say they always knew Lila was bad news. Kendra stopped by around dinner time, looking better than she had since we'd met. The edge in her eyes had softened, replaced by something like calm. You holding up? She asked. Better than I thought. You? Free? For the first time in 2 years, I feel like I can breathe. We sat on the porch sipping beers, watching cars roll by. A quiet Spokane evening, the kind I hadn't savored in months. What's next for you? I asked. Moving. Getting out of here. Yeah, starting over somewhere without ghosts on every corner. Makes sense. You? Me? I'm staying. This is my city, my home, my business. I'm not the one who needs to run. She nodded, getting it. You won, Jack. Trent's looking at a decade, minimum. Lila's facing 5 to 7. Roger's probably spilling his guts to shave time off his sentence. It's not about winning, I said. It's about consequences, about making sure people who torch others' lives get burned right back. Tuesday, the Spokane Chronicle dropped its first article on the case. Local contractor busts marriage fraud ring. It painted me as some kind of hometown hero who risked it all to expose a scam that had fleeced dozens of families over 2 years. I wasn't sure about the hero label, but I didn't mind being seen as the guy who fought back instead of the one who got played. Wednesday, Lila's lawyer showed up, a polished guy from Seattle named Victor Langston, probably charging more per hour than I cleared in a day. Mr. Harper, I'm representing your wife in these criminal proceedings. Lila's Harper. I'm Jack Harper. We kept our own names. Right, Jack. I'm here to discuss a potential plea deal. Talk to the DA. I'm just a witness. You're more than that. You're the victim of a conspiracy to defraud, and your testimony's key. But you're also in a position to show leniency to someone you once cared for. I laughed, sharp and cold. Leniency? She tried to gut my life for cash. Faked evidence to paint me as a monster, stuff that could have landed me in jail. Conspired with crooks to take everything I built. And you want leniency? She's facing a serious time. Good. She earned it. Jack, I get you're upset, but Lila's still your wife, the woman you loved. No, the woman I loved vanished 3 months ago when she turned criminal. What's left is a stranger with her face. Langston pushed for another 20 minutes, dangling full restitution, public apologies, even a promise Lila would vanish from my life if I just nudged the prosecutor to go easy. I showed him the door without a single promise. Thursday, the city council president swung by, eager to pin some kind of community service medal on me for taking down a criminal ring. I waved it off, keeping it polite. Didn't do anything heroic, I said. Just stood up to crooks who picked the wrong guy to mess with. Friday brought the trial date, November 10th, just weeks away. Greg Harlan broke it down. With the mountain of evidence we'd handed over, it'd be a quick slam dunk. Lila, Trent, and Roger had little choice but to plead guilty and beg for lighter sentences. What about the house? I asked. Yours, Jack. Always was, since your name's solo on the deed. Lila's got no claim, especially with fraud in the mix. And my business? Yours too. All this buzz? You'll probably see clients lining up. Folks love backing a guy who stands up to punks. That weekend, I did something I hadn't in ages. I chilled, kicked back on my porch in Spokane's Browne's addition, cracked a beer, watched football, and didn't give a single thought to what Lila was up to or who she was with. For the first time since this whole mess kicked off, I felt like Jack again. Sunday evening, my phone lit up. Marla. Jack, I owe you an apology for my family's mess. You don't owe me a thing, Marla. You didn't do anything wrong. I should have caught what Lila was scheming. Should have tipped you off. Nobody saw it coming. She played us all. Mom's not handling it well. Keeps saying Lila was manipulated, more victim than crook. Your mom can think what she wants. The jury'll have their say. What she did to you, it's unforgivable. Yeah, but that's not your weight to carry. We talked for an hour about family, trust, and the line between loyalty and enabling. Marla was a decent person stuck in a rotten spot, trying to love her sister while facing the fact that Lila had turned into something ugly. By the time we hung up, I got it. Some bonds don't survive betrayal, even when it's not aimed at you. The next few weeks slid by quietly. I hammered away on kitchen remodels, watched Spokane's trees turn gold and red, and pushed thoughts of ruby red lingerie and fake girls' trips out of my head. The media frenzy fizzled out, reporters chasing fresher stories, and life in Browne's addition settled back into its usual rhythm of neighborhood chatter and fall festivals. October brought a surprise visitor, Trent's ex-wife, a worn-out woman named Diane, who drove up from Oregon to thank me for exposing her ex's crimes. Over coffee at my kitchen table, she said, "He tanked our marriage the same way he tried to tank yours. I didn't have your evidence, so I lost everything in the divorce. House, savings, the works." "That's rough," I said, meaning it. "Don't feel bad. Be proud. You probably spared a dozen families from our kind of hell." She showed me photos of her new life, a modest apartment in Portland, a gig at a community center, and a new guy who treated her right. "It gets easier," she said as she headed out. "The hurt, the rage, the feeling you'll never trust again. It fades. It took me 2 years. But Jack, what you did, fighting back, exposing their game, that'll speed up your healing. You didn't just survive, you came out on top." November 10th rolled in cold and gray, with a wind that ripped the last leaves off the trees and warned winter was closing in. The Spokane courthouse was packed. Half the city showed up to see Lila Harper get her reckoning, plus reporters from 3 papers and a couple TV crews. I testified for 4 hours, walking the jury through it all: the lingerie purchase, the emails I uncovered, the files from Trent's computer. Greg had prepped me solid, so I stuck to the facts. No rants or breakdowns. Lila's lawyer, Victor Langston, tried to paint me as a vengeful husband, hinting I'd faked evidence or set her up. But the proof was ironclad, and my story lined up with everything the cops had verified. Lila looked smaller at the defendant's table, dressed in a sleek gray suit that probably cost more than my truck. She'd dropped weight, and new lines creased her face. Jail orange clearly wasn't her shade. When she took the stand, she played the victim card, claiming Trent had pulled her strings, a naive woman swept up by a slick con man. She teared up on cue, talking about our marriage like it was some fairy tale ruined by forces beyond her. The jury didn't bite. The prosecutor's closing was a gut punch, laying out the conspiracy's timeline, the cold planning, the deliberate scam to ruin an innocent guy for profit. "This wasn't a slip-up or a moment of weakness," he said. "It was a calculated plot to destroy a man for money." The jury took 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Trent got 12 years, Roger got 8, Lila got 6, plus full restitution, meaning she'd be cutting me checks for life. As the judge read the sentences, I didn't feel triumph or revenge, just a quiet click of closure. It was done. The woman who'd tried to bury me was headed to prison, and I was headed home to rebuild. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, asking how I felt about the verdicts. "The system did its job," I said. "Crooks got punished, victims got justice, and Spokane's a little safer. That's enough for me." "Do you forgive your wife?" one asked. "Ex-wife," I corrected. "Divorce was finalized last month. Forgiveness isn't the point. She broke the law, got caught, and now she's paying for it." "That's how the system's supposed to work," I told the reporters outside the courthouse. "What's next for you, Jack?" "Back to work. Got 3 kitchen remodels lined up next month, and Mrs. Callahan's been waiting half a year for me to wrap her countertops." Life keeps moving. That night, Nate threw a bash at Rusty's. Half of Spokane showed up, slinging drinks my way and toasting what they called the takedown of the decade. I hung around a couple hours, soaking in the free beers, handshakes, and backslaps. But honestly, I just wanted to get home. Kendra was there, having driven up from Portland for the sentencing. She looked sharp, better than sharp. The haunted edge in her eyes was gone, replaced by a spark that might have been joy. "What's the plan now?" she asked as the party wound down. "I go back to being Jack Harper, contractor and professional thorn in the side of anyone who tries to cross me. And if someone tries again?" I grinned, draining my beer. "They'll know better, won't they? Word spreads fast in a place like this. I'm not the guy who gets played anymore." "No," she agreed. "You're definitely not." We said our goodbyes in the parking lot, two strangers thrown together by betrayal who'd somehow turned pain into justice. She headed back to Portland and her fresh start. I drove home to Browne's addition and mine. Walking into the house, it didn't feel hollow anymore. Not like a tomb of old times, but like a clean slate, as if the toxic air had been swapped for something breathable. I sank onto my couch in my living room, in my home, and thought about ruby red lingerie, fake girls' trips, and the woman who tried to burn my life down for $65 worth of lace and a jacked-up trainer. Some folks can't handle being called out, I thought. Guess I'm not paranoid, just sharp-eyed. And that's when it hit me. I was free. Not just legally rid of a marriage built on lies, but emotionally unshackled from the rage and hurt that had eaten me alive for months. Lila was in prison where she belonged. Trent was locked up where he belonged. And me? I was right where I was meant to be, in my house, my city, living life on my terms. The next morning kicked off with old habits and new possibilities. I sipped coffee on my porch, skimmed the Spokane Chronicle's take on the sentencing, justice delivered in marriage fraud bust, and grinned at the headline. My phone rang, a new client wanting a quote for a bathroom overhaul. "Harper Contracting, Jack speaking. Mr. Harper, heard about that mess with your wife and that trainer. Take real guts to do what you did. Most folks would have just taken the hit." "Most folks don't catch it in time," I said. "Thanks, though. Now about that bathroom. Turns out life's pretty sweet when you're not hitched to a crook. By Christmas, the story was Spokane folklore. The contractor who dismantled a fraud ring, the husband who fought back and came out on top. I got cards from people I barely knew, thanking me for standing up to scammers and proving honest folks could win. Diane, Trent's ex-wife, sent one with a photo of her new Portland apartment and a note saying she was engaged to that community center guy she'd mentioned. Even Marla sent a card with a family snapshot, writing that she was proud of how I'd handled it all and sorry for what her sister put me through. Nothing came from Lila, which was probably for the best. On New Year's Eve, I found myself back at Rusty's, nursing a beer and watching folks celebrate the end of the wildest, most rewarding year of my life. Nate slid onto the stool beside me, raising his glass. "To justice," he said. "To justice," I echoed. "And to the fact that sometimes the creeps get exactly what's coming." "I'll drink that." We clinked glasses and sipped. Two guys who'd seen enough to know that if you fight smart, fight hard, and get a little lucky, the good guys can come out ahead. At midnight, as the ball dropped and folks cheered, kissed their partners, and made promises they'd probably break, I lifted my glass again. "To start fresh," I said to nobody in particular. Outside, snow began to fall, blanketing Spokane in a quiet, clean hush. Inside, the bar glowed with warmth, packed with friends and neighbors who'd had my back when everything went sideways. I finished my beer, said my goodnights, and strolled home through the snow to my place on Cedar Avenue. My house paid for with my sweat, filled with my furniture, holding my memories of better days and my hopes for even brighter ones. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and smiled.